Hey everyone, it's Failed Shot back in the video, and today we're going to be diving into Guild Boss, specifically Water Guild Boss. Now, I haven't made a video on this in a long time because I don't think the Guild Boss rewards are increasingly impressive, but we're going to go ahead and give you a general strategy, my own team and my own run, as well as the top 10 characters I think for the Water Guild Boss. So if you enjoyed the video and want to see more, be sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and let's jump right into it. All right, so here we are, we're at the Water Guild Boss, and you can see I put up a score of 1.3 million. Now, that was just me gearing out Antinua. I didn't actually go ahead and re-gear all my units here to make sure I had the proper speed tune. It was on manual, and this was before the Hacker nerf. I think after the Hacker nerf, it doesn't really change all that much for this comp specifically. I think it literally changes nothing, but obviously we will find out here. If I was having the proper speed tune and I re-geared out my units, I think I could get to 1.4, 1.5 million here with this comp. So very, very solid score. And those are probably the best units that you want to use for this guild boss. But I'm going to talk through the top 10 as we run the run on the background. But before we do that, I just want to quickly go over the skills for the guild boss and specifically the Water Guild Boss and what makes this one unique. First off, the basic attack. This skill prioritizes characters that are not negative element towards the guild boss. So for example, if you have a wood unit, they're not going to want to hit the wood unit because it's a negative element for them. And so they're going to hit Hackran or William in my comp. Specifically, they're going to hit Hackran. I'm not sure how the targeting works here, but I believe because Hackran has lower max HP than William, it hits Hackran every time. I'm not 100% sure on how that works, but I believe that's how it works. And then we have the trait here with this guild boss. Removes all negative effects of the character on the end of the turn, and this is the unique aspect of each of the elemental guild boss. It means that debuffs are increasingly useless on this guild boss, specifically poisons and things like that. It also means that if you time the defense down right, you're going to get more value than if you use it closer to the end of the turn. And then the ultimate, which is just an AoE that hits everyone every other turn. So there's a bunch of general strategies for this comp or for this guild boss and guild boss in general, but I'm gonna go over the top 10 in regards to DPS as well as support. But we're gonna go ahead and run the run in the background and just give you some general strategies overall before we jump into that. First thing is, obviously sustain is a big portion of how you're gonna go ahead and live a long time in these guild boss. But in regards to characters that have kind of random targeting abilities, especially for allies, so Yolanda, Mary, what you're going to want to do when you start off the battle is make sure that you're targeting your damage dealer. In this case, it's going to be Antinua. So we're going to target her. She's going to have that green circle on her, as you can see when it pops up again. Here you go. So Yolanda is always going to target Antinua with the bonus turn, and William's always going to target Antinua with the defense up on his counter attack. This is very, very important to make sure that your auto runs are getting a lot of damage. If you don't have this, you're going to lose significant chunks of damage. And you can see here I'm only running one damage dealer, and this is oftentimes what you're going to want to do. You're going to want to stack a bunch of support pieces around that one damage dealer. There's some obvious exceptions, you can run multiple damage dealers, but for this one, it's in particular, Antinua is such a monster of a DPS that you really just want to run Antinua if you have her. There's some replacements, but obviously not as good, and I'll go over all those characters in a moment. Characters like that just increase overall tankiness and provide you that little bit of sustain. In this case, Yolanda is going to have that shield so she can negate one of the big AoE hits. And we're going to have Hacker for the defense increase and the max HP up. And then we're going to have William just to increase our damage just a little bit on the basic attacks for Antinua. So this comp is very, very solid. One of the key points to make sure that you're surviving a long time in the guild boss is tricking AI targeting. It's very, very important that you're making sure that the guild boss is hitting the correct target. Whether or not that's actually your damage dealer is up to you. For example, I found some success with making sure that the guild boss targets Gorel in some of the fire guild boss because he's going to counterattack and get more damage. Like you could see here that he's going to target Hackran because he's got, I think, he's got the lowest HP. Hold on, let me move myself to the side here. But you can see here, he's got the lowest HP at 20k, and then William's got 28k, as well as Yolanda and Antinua having the wood element in their advantage. So he's not going to target them until both William and Hackran are dead. So this is very important. Hackran is the tankiest one of the team. So keeping him alive and keeping him making sure that he gets all the hits keeps our Antinua alive for much longer. So that's going to be it for this general strategy, but we're going to jump into the top 10 list. I'm just going to go over some of the characters Now, I've broken this up into two parts. The first part is the supports that I think are very, very good for this water guild boss. And then the second part is going to be the DPS units you can use in place of Antinua or Antinua herself. And this is in no particular order necessarily. The DPS units are in a particular order, and I think the amount of damage that they actually do. You compare multiple DPS and multiple supports. I generally think that triple support with one DPS gives you a little bit more damage. Let's go ahead and jump into some of the supports here. So for the first 6 units are all going to be supports, and we have 3 of them on this team. I think Yolanda is an absolutely amazing character, and I'll go ahead and drop the portraits on screen here so you know what I'm talking about. But Yolanda is an absolutely amazing character. You're going to have the AoE shield, which prevents some of the AoE nukage, and just gives you a little bit of extra survivability. But really, the key point in why she's so good is because she's going to provide damage up and a bonus turn to your damage dealer. This gives you increasingly insane damage, especially with someone like Antinua or someone like Savannah, which we'll go over later. She just gives you a monster DPS increase. Methasia is on this list, just gives you that extra sustain. Really, she's only in there for healing, so she's just there to increase the survivability and make you go longer. Hakron is number 3, and Hakron is just a monster support unit, increasing your survivability with that defense sharing and max HP up. I think a lot of people understand Hakron at this point. He's just a massive tank increasing unit for your whole squad. Number 4 is going to be Blackhorn, and I think Blackhorn's a little bit worse than Methasia, but he's also very, very good at just increasing your overall tankiness for your squad because of the healing, or at least survivability of your squad. Actually, important to note, with the recent changes to Hakron, Hakron's max HP up is actually a buff, which works with with Methasia. So Methasia plus Hakron is even better now because of the healing you're getting from the max HP up buff, because Methasia heals if you have a buff when you use a skill. Now we have number 5, which is William, and again, as I said, these are no particular order because I actually think William is the best for this. William is just such a monster with the counterattack, increasing your damage, specifically on basic attacks. Remember, he's giving that 60% increased damage on basic attacks, and someone like Antinua really benefits from that because she's double hitting on basic. She has a curse set in this case, and she's just going to be an absolute monster with William on the squad and increase her damage a lot. And then number 6 here is actually Mary, and Mary is in here for the same purpose that I think Yolanda is good. She's going to be able to target Antinua or whoever you're using, giving them that extra turn, as well as having them extra damage up. Very, very good characters in Yolanda and Mary. Then we have the next 4, which are DPS units. And obviously, number 1, and this is in order, is going to be Antinua. She just does unparalleled damage to the guild boss, specifically the wood one. She's also good on specifically the water one. She's also good on the wood one, but not quite as good. I still think she can be very, very good and comparable to some of the fire DPS kings out there, but she's just an absolute monster here, and definitely number 1 for the water guild boss. And you'll see after I go ahead and beat this, I'll just go through the teams real quick and you can see how many people are actually running Antinua. And then number 2 is going to be Savannah, and Savannah really shines here simply because she needs a longer fight to make sure she's stacking up her passive to get her increased damage, and she actually does quite a bit of damage if she's able to get into a long fight. And with the counterattacks with William, specifically in this team, and with the bonus turns from Yolanda, you're going to get a lot of ultimates off and really just do some massive damage with Savannah here, and very, very good character in regards to doing damage to the water guild boss here. Then we have Evra at number 3, and Evra, there's a big drop between Antinua and Savannah. There's also a big drop between Savannah and Evra from the damage that I've seen, and that's because Evra loses a lot of her viability because her trait and her ultimate really are awesome because of the AoE, and she can't stack her trait as much, and she oftentimes needs the attack up buff, and she doesn't necessarily have it on 100% uptime because of the fact that she can't get it from someone else on the squad. She does get it oftentimes. It can reduce her cooldowns, so she does have it quite often, but it's not necessarily 100% uptime. And then the last one is actually Vance, and I think that Vance and Ever are quite comparable. I actually think that it might be that Vance is a little bit better. Now, if you have Zatlux, Zatlux is very comparable to Vance, but Vance is going to be better than Zatlux overall in the course of the battle. his ultimate's just going to do more damage, his second skill's going to do more damage, and he's just going to overall do a lot more damage than Zatlex, because Zatlex really only shines if you're killing someone and you can't kill the guild boss and kind of reset the ultimate and things like that. So very, very solid characters there, and you can see this run's about to come to an end. Now, this one's a little weaker because of some of the RNG I was watching with some of the curse procs and things, but 600 to 800k is generally what I get on auto for this comp. I've tested it a few times. If I'm running on a manual, as I said, I will be able to get to that 1.3 million. I would like to test it a little bit more with the Hackern changes with Mythasia, because I do have Mythasia. It might be that Mythasia is just a little bit better because of the new interaction between the two of them. But overall, this comp is very solid, and I'll just skip ahead to see when we actually die here. But I do want to point out that you can see the guild boss actually did hit Hackern there and not Yolanda, just because he's a water affinity. So let's go ahead and skip ahead and see when we actually finish this off. All right, so that's the end of it. Yolanda ended up surviving for another like 6 or 7 rounds. But we ended up getting 621,000 damage on full auto. Again, just target your damage dealer with that, basically attack targeting skill, and you're going to go ahead and get a lot of damage. Now you can see here, even getting 29 chest, 621k damage. I'm still getting some 6-star pieces, but a lot of times it's 5-star pieces. And honestly, the rewards aren't very good, which is one of the reasons why I haven't necessarily made a video on it, because I don't think it's very important. The only reason that a lot of people do it even is the level 20 guild boss quest, and this will help you end up doing that. But you can just see here just the general comps that people are using. It's almost the exact same comp across the board. The only difference is actually my comp here with Yolanda, and then my spells are different. Agile Leap's a little bit better generally because of having someone behind Intinua and giving Intinua a bonus turn, but you do need to have someone behind Intinua in the turn order for that to work properly. And then we have a bunch of other comps here. Again, it's the same exact comp pretty much across the board, just Intinua, Hackern, William, Mythasia. Intinua, Hackern, William is basically the core, and then some people use Yolanda, some people use Mythasia, some people use Blackhorn, and some people use different spells. Generally, the spells you're going to want to use are things like Shield of Mercy, Agile Leap, Gaia's Renewal, and Defense Down. Those are generally the best spells to use. Really, the extra sustain spells do help you get a lot of extra damage. You can see here when we get down to the lower numbers, we have some Savannahs and some other pieces of the comp. But generally, it's just going to be that Mythasia, Hackern, William, Intinua in that guild boss slots. And overall, that's pretty much it for guild boss. Let me know if you all want to see a elemental guide on the fire and the wood run. Same strategy where I'd be giving you the top 10 characters, I think, to basically create a comp around for the guild boss. So that'll be it for this one, and I'll see you for the next one.